Hi students, in today's lesson we will discuss one of the important concepts from design and analysis of algorithm subject, and the concept is asymptotic notations. So before coming to this topic, I just want to tell you guys that if you guys have not seen my earlier lessons where I have discussed everything about algorithm, pseudocode, how pseudocode is different from an algorithm, and what are those pseudocode conventions that can be used at the time of writing an algorithm. If you guys have not seen those videos, then I just recommend you guys to watch those videos as well. And if you guys have not subscribed this channel, then first subscribe the channel and watch this lesson completely. And if you like this lesson, then don't forget to click on the like button. Okay, so now let us come to our topic and start our discussion. Okay, so the concept here which we are going to cover is asymptotic notations. So asymptotic notations, as you can see here, are the mathematical way of estimating complexity of an algorithm. Okay, so here in this approach, we will be using a mathematical way of estimating the complexity of an algorithm. So there will be two complexities of an algorithm. We will calculate the time complexity of an algorithm and we will calculate the space complexity of an algorithm. So for estimating both time as well as the space complexity of an algorithm, we will be using the mathematical way. For estimating both time and the space complexity, we have various asymptotic notations such as big O notation, we have omega notation, we have theta notation. Okay, so we will use these notations to mathematically estimate the time and space complexity of an algorithm. Okay, so one by one we'll be going to discuss each and every of these notations. Okay, so now here I hope you guys have understood the definition why we are learning this asymptotic notations. Okay, so with these notations we are trying to estimate the time as well as the space complexity of an algorithm. Okay, so now here you can see mathematical. In the definition they have given a word as mathematical. Why we are going with an approach of mathematical way? Okay, so because we cannot accurately estimate the time and space complexity in terms of microseconds, nanoseconds, because my system may take 1 microsecond of time to execute those set of lines of that algorithm, and it may be possible that your system might take even less time than this to execute the same algorithm. So the time which we are trying to estimate in terms of microseconds and nanoseconds maybe varies based on the machine to machine. So here we are getting variations in time. That's why we cannot properly estimate the complexity, both time and space complexity of an algorithm in terms of these units. So now that's why we have come up with a better approach of estimating the time and complexity of an algorithm by using this mathematical way, where we are trying to estimate the time and space complexity of an algorithm using various asymptotic notations, and those asymptotic notations are big O, big omega, and theta. So I hope you guys have understood why we are going with this mathematical approach of estimating the time and space complexity of an algorithm. Okay, now we will come to the next. Here we can see we are mainly concentrating on estimating the complexity, as I have said, and there are two types of complexities: time complexity and space complexity. So what is time complexity? Okay, so when you execute and program, your algorithm might have some set of lines, or those lines might tries to access certain resources of your computer. So when your lines has to access certain resources of a computer at the time of execution, obviously it will be going to take some time. So now with this time complexity, we will be trying to estimate how much time that algorithm will going to take. So that is what the time complexity is. What is the time taken by that algorithm to execute itself? And in the space complexity, we will be going to see how much space that algorithm requires to execute. Okay, so here out of these two types of complexities, we will be mainly focusing on the time complexity, because in our systems we will be having enough space available. So we hardly face any difficulties in terms of space, but we want our programs to run faster, with a faster pace, where users do not have to wait. Okay, so we mainly have to focus on the time. We have to design such algorithms which will provide us the output in as less time as possible. Okay, so that's what we will be mainly focusing on, the time complexity of an algorithm. As I have said, if you want to estimate the time complexity of an algorithm, we have to use these various asymptotic notations, which are worst case, which we can also denote it with the symbol as big O, and we have best case, which we can denote it with the symbol of big omega, and we have average case, which we can denote it with the symbol of theta. Okay, so now we will try to discuss the first type of asymptotic notation, which is the worst case. Okay, so worst case says that what is the maximum time taken by your algorithm to execute itself. When I write an algorithm, it will be having some set of lines, and based on the type of the algorithm might take less time to execute, or my algorithm might take more time to execute. It's completely based on the type of algorithm I have written. Okay, so it's possible that my algorithm may execute in as less time as possible, or it can also take maximum time. So now we are going to estimate what is that maximum time required for an algorithm to execute, and that we will be going to discuss in worst case. So now we will try to understand this expression with the help of this graph with x and y axis. On the x axis I have taken the size of input or the number of steps, and on the y axis I am taking the time. So as you can clearly see in this graph, the graph is moving in a linear fashion, which indicates that as on you keep on increasing the size of the input, or the number of steps gets increased, the time taken by that algorithm to execute those number of steps also gets increased. Okay, so now since we are estimating the worst case behavior of an algorithm, and what we calculate using worst case scenario, we will try to estimate what is that maximum time required by that algorithm to execute. Okay, so here with this graph we are trying to estimate that worst case behavior. Okay, so now here you can see I have a function f of n, okay, which is, as you can see, is moving in a linear fashion, and I have another function g of n. Okay, so now you can see this function g of n is the maximum time required for this function to execute. This function f of n cannot exceed this function g of n, and we can also call this function g of n as an upper bound. So when I'm saying upper bound, this function g of n is indicating the maximum time for that algorithm to execute. So if this function has to execute itself, it has to execute itself within this upper bound. Okay, so this function cannot exceed the function g of n, because the function g of n is the upper bound, or the maximum time for that function to execute. So this is what we are representing here. Okay, so now this function f of n is big O of g of n, because this g of n is the maximum time required by that algorithm. As I have said, as on I keep on increasing the size of the input, the time is also increased. So at a certain point of time, at this point you can see the function g of n was below the function f of n. Okay, and once it reaches to this particular point, after that for each and every input, the value of function g of n will be always higher than the value of function f of n. That means after this particular point, we can see this behavior of worst case, that after this point, whatever input you provide, g of n will always be going to higher than the function f of n. Okay, so that is what we are trying to prove with this mathematical notations. Okay, so now here you can see I have written a statement or an expression which says f of n is equals to big O of g of n. Okay, which says function g of n will always be the upper bound or upper limit to this function f of n. That has to follow these conditions if and only if function f of n is less than or equals to c dot g of n. So now this c is some constant value. C has to always greater than 0. As you can see here, where c has to always greater than 0, and n is the number of steps, and the number of steps has to be either greater than or equals to n naught, okay, which is this particular point. Okay, and n is greater than or equals to 1. That means the n is the number of steps. Okay, so if you have written an algorithm, there has to be at least one or more than one step present in an algorithm. Okay, so now here we have taken the value for function f of n as 2n plus 3, and the value of function g of n is equals to n. So with this expression, we are trying to prove that what are those inputs after which the value of function g of n will always be higher or on the upper bound. Okay. So now here you can see I have taken the equation for f of n as 2n plus 3. So that's what expression I am just keeping here. 2n plus 3 is less than or equals to c. Okay. So for this first step, I have taken the value of c as 1 because in the condition I have mentioned that the c value has to be greater than 0, and n I have taken as 1. That means in that algorithm there was only one step. Okay, so now 2 into n, which is 1 plus 3, is less than or equals to c into g of n. C is 1, okay, and n is also 1. Okay, n is also 1. So now you can see it's equals to 5. 5 is less than or equals to 1. Here condition is not satisfying. Okay, so 5 cannot be less than 1, so this becomes false. Okay, now I will check with the value of n equals to 2. I will keep the value of c as 1, check here. So I will put those values in this expression. 2 into 2 plus 3, the 4 plus 3, 7. 7 is less than or equals to c is 1 and n is 2, which is also not true. Okay, so this is also not satisfying this condition. So what I will do, I will change the value of c to 2 and I will keep the value of n as 2 itself. Okay, so with these values I will put inside this expression. So 2 into 2 plus 3, which is 7, is less than or equals to 2 into 2, 4. Yes, it's also, these values are also not satisfying this expression. Okay, so 7 is not equals to 4. Okay, so now what I will do next, I will take the value of c as 4 and I will keep the value of n as 2. And when I use these values in this expression, 2 into 2 plus 3, which equals to 7, I'm checking whether the 7 is either less or equal to 4 into 2, which is 8. Yes, here it becomes 8 and here 7, yes, less than or equals to, yes, here the 7 is less than 8. That's why for these two values of c equals to 4 and n equals to 2, this expression is satisfying. Okay, so after this, if you keep on changing the value of n to 3, 4, 5, 6 or any other number, you will see your function g of n will always be going to higher. Okay, so now after this point, when you have the n value equals to 2 and your c value will equals to 4, your function g of n will always going to be upper bound to this function f of n. So now we have proved that for each and every value of n after 2, your g of n will always be the upper bound to this function f of n. Okay, so now with this we have proved this, that f of n is the big O of g of n. So that means this g of n will always be the upper bound to function f of n. So now with this way of mathematical approach, we have proved that function f of n is equals to big O of g of n. So this is how we can estimate the time complexity of an algorithm in worst case, which is big O notation. Okay, so now students, we will see what is the second type of asymptotic notation, which is the big omega notation, and we also call it as best case. So best case time complexity is something where we try to measure what is the minimum time required for any algorithm to execute. In the worst case scenario, we were estimating the maximum time required for an algorithm, and in the case of best case, we will be estimating what is the minimum time required for that algorithm to execute, and that can be demonstrated or denoted mathematically using big omega symbol. So here I have written that mathematical expression as function f of n is equals to big omega of function g of n. Okay, so now with this expression, what we are trying to say is the function g of n will always be on the lower bound or always be on below the function f of n if and only if function f of n is greater than c dot g of n. That's what the function f of n will be higher than the function g of n, and this function g of n will be always on the lower bound. The function f of n will never come below this function g of n. So now for this expression to holds good or to satisfied, these conditions has to be true. Okay, so now function f of n has to be greater than or equals to c dot g of n, and c is a constant which has to be always greater than 0, and n, which is the number of steps or the size of the input, has to be always greater than or equals to n naught, greater than or equals to n naught, and n naught has to be either greater than or equals to 1, which is, you can see here. At the moment when n naught is either greater than or equals to 1, we will start noticing this behavior of f of n is equals to big omega of g of n. So after this particular point where n naught becomes either equal to 1 or exceeds the value of 1, the function f of n start coming below this function f of n, which is satisfying here. Okay, now when these conditions get satisfied, then we can say this function f of n is equals to big omega of function g of n, and the same behavior we are trying to depict with the help of this graph. Okay, here I have plotted a graph where on the x-axis I have taken the input size or the number of steps, and on the y-axis I have taken the time. So what this is indicating is, as on you keep on increasing the number of input, the time is also increased, and you can see here in this graph it's showing you the linear behavior of an algorithm, where with the increase in the size of input, the time is also increasing. Okay, so now here you can see in this graph this g of n is a lower bound. Okay, so below this lower bound your function f of n will never going to come. This function f of n will always be on the above this lower bound, which is g of n. So now that's what we are trying to prove with this mathematical expression. Okay, so here you can see in this graph at the beginning stages the function g of n were above the function f of n, but when the algorithm crosses certain input and that input will be represented with this n naught, when the input size equals to 1 or greater than 1, you will start noticing this behavior that function g of n will start coming below the function f of n. Okay, so now that's what we are trying to prove with the help of this mathematical expression. So here function f of n is equals to big omega of function g of n. This condition holds good if and only if these conditions get satisfied. Okay, so now here what we are checking, function f of n is greater than or equals to c dot g of n. Okay, so this function f of n will always be greater than or equals to c dot function g of n, and c is a constant. So we will take function f as 2n plus 3 and we will take g of n as n, and we will try to test this with the help of this expression. Okay, so now function f of n is greater than or equals to c dot g of n. So we have taken the value of c as 1, which has to be always greater than 0. That's why I have taken c as 1 and n equals to 1. So for value of c equals to 1 and n equals to 1, here you can see it equals to 5. 5 is greater than or equals to 1. Yes, here condition gets satisfied. Okay, so for the value of c equals to 1 and n equals to 1, our function f of n will always be greater than or equals to c dot g of n. So now if I take any value after that for n, even if it is 2, 3, 4, then this condition holds good. So now you can see I have taken c equals to 1 and n equals to 2. So if I put these values in this expression, so now 7 is greater than or equals to 2. Yes, this one is also satisfying this equation. And now if I take c equals to 1 and n equals to 3, so now you can see 9 is greater than or equals to 3. Yes, this one is also, and this one is also satisfying this expression. What does this mean is, whatever will be the size of input after n naught equals to 1, then your function g of n will always be below or always be the lower bound to this function f of n. And hence we have proved that the function f of n is equals to big omega of function g of n. Okay, so this is about the measuring the best case time complexity of an algorithm using the asymptotic notation omega. So now we will see what is the third type of asymptotic notation, which is the average case using the theta notation. Okay, so now we will see the third type of asymptotic notation, which is the theta notation, and we can also call it as average case scenario. So now the average case scenario estimation is something where we will try to find out or to calculate the average time required for an algorithm to execute itself. Because every time this may not be happen that your algorithm will take maximum time, and every time this also may not be happen that your algorithm will execute in less time. So this may be possible that your algorithm may take average time which lies between the maximum time and the lowest time. So that is what a average case scenario. Okay, so I hope you guys have understood what is average case scenario, where we will try to find out the average time required for an algorithm to execute itself. Okay, so that behavior we are trying to depict with the help of this mathematical expression using the theta notation. Okay, so now here you can see I have plotted a graph where on the x-axis I have taken the number of input size or the number of steps, and on the y-axis I have taken the time. So now with this graph you can clearly see that the graph is moving in a linear fashion. Okay, so this algorithm is behaving as a linear algorithm, because as I keep on increasing the number of input size, or if I increase the number of steps in an algorithm, the time is also getting increased. Okay, so when I keep on increasing the number of size, we will be keep on noticing the behavior of average case, where our function f of n will lies between the upper bound and the lower bound. So this is the upper bound and this is the lower bound. So here you can see our function which executes itself by taking an input of size n will be lies between the upper bound and the lower bound. See, this c2 dot g of n is the upper bound and the c1 dot g of n is the lower bound, and your function will never going to cross both of these upper bound and lower bound. That is what the average case scenario is all about. And when the algorithm starts execution, after the algorithm reaches to a particular point which says n not equals to 1, or it can be more than 1, at that time we will start noticing this behavior that our function f of n will be lying between the upper bound and the lower bound. Okay, so this behavior of an algorithm in average case we are trying to depict with the help of this mathematical equation. Function f of n is equals to theta of function g of n, and the function f of n is the theta of function g of n, and there are some conditions if and only if these conditions get satisfied. Okay, so here with this expression what we are trying to evaluate is if the function f of n value is greater than the lower bound, which is c1 dot function g of n, and lesser than the function value c2 dot g of n, which is the upper bound, where c1 comma c2 is greater than 0. c1 and c2 has to be greater than 0, and n value, which is the number of steps, has to be greater than or equals to n naught. Okay, and n naught is greater than or equals to 1. Okay, so you should have at least one or more than one number of steps in your algorithm, and your n naught value has to be either 1 or it can be greater than 1. When you met these conditions while executing the algorithm, then you can say your algorithm is behaving in a average case scenario. Okay, so now here I have taken f of n as equals to 2n plus 3 and g of n equals to n, and we will put this in this expression to evaluate whether this expression satisfying or not. Okay, so now here you can see I have taken the value of c1 as 1 and value of c2 as 4 and value of n equals to 1. That means there is one step in an algorithm. Okay, so now when I take these values and try to put these values inside this expression, so 1 into 1 says 1 is less than or equals to 5. Yes, this one is true, 1 is less than 5, and here this 5 has to be less than 4, which is not true. Okay, so this becomes false. So this when I take the values of c equals to 1 and c2 equals to 4 and n equals to 1, so I'm not satisfying this condition. Okay, so when I make n equals to 2, then you can see if I put those values inside this expression, 1 into 2 is less than 7. Yes, 2 is less than 7, which is true, and 4 into 2, which is c2 into g of n, which is c2 is 4 and n value is 2, which becomes 8. Okay, so now this 7 is less than or equals to 8. Yes, 7 is less than 8. So both of these are satisfying in this equation. So that means now for the value of c equals to 1 and c2 equals to 4 and n equals to 2, we are getting this expression. We are satisfying the equation. So now onwards, for each and every value of n, whether it is 3 or 4 or 5, whatever value you take, this condition will going to satisfy. So here you can see in this third step, I have taken the value of c as 1, c2 as 4 and n equals to 3. So now for that value, I have here it becomes 3. 3 is less than, yes, 9, correct? Okay, so here, and then 4 into 3. Yes, 12. Okay, so 3 is less than 9. Yes, true. And 9 is less than 12. Okay, so now that means here as well we are satisfying this condition. Okay, so now for these values our expression is getting satisfied, and hence we prove that this function f of n is equals to theta of function g of n. Okay, so now I hope you guys have understood what are the various types of asymptotic notations and what is the use of those notations, and we have discussed worst case, best case and average case scenario with the help of a graph, and we try to prove this graph with the help of mathematical expressions. So now we will see an example, and with the help of that example we will further try to understand this worst case, best case and average case scenarios. So now we will try to further understand this worst case, best case and average case with the help of this example. So here I have created an array of 11 elements. Okay, and array indexes started from 0 and it will be keep on increasing. So now I have written an algorithm, and the work of that algorithm is to find an element from this array of 11 elements. And when I try to execute that algorithm and I want to search one element out of this array, and that element is 50. Suppose the element which I'm looking for in this array is 50, and since this 50 is present on the very first location of this array, that's why our algorithm don't have to iterate or go through in each and every indexes or each and every location of this array. Okay, so the moment when it starts execution, it first reaches to this first place, and at that moment itself it will find this element 50. So now this satisfies the best case, where the algorithm doesn't have to search for this element in each and every index of this array. So now I will take another case. Suppose the element which I am looking for is 110. Okay, so now for searching for this element, don't you think my algorithm has to iterate over each and every position of this array, and once it reaches to the last element, last position, then it will find that element. That means the time taken for this algorithm now becomes more. Okay, in earlier case where the algorithm has to search in only one location, now in this case the algorithm has to search in one by one in each and every location, and once it reaches to that last location, it will find that element. Okay, so that means the time required now for this algorithm is n, and in terms of complexities we can denote it with big O of n. Okay, because our algorithm has to search n number of times. Now the value of n is 11, because here we have 11 elements, and our algorithm has to iterate for 11 times to search for that element 110. Okay, that means the time required for this algorithm in this case is big O of n, and this case will be represented with the worst case. Okay, and now this may be also possible that the item or the element which I'm looking for is 20. Okay, so since the element 20 is present in between this array, which is this element, and that element is not at the very beginning of this array and not on the last position of that array, since that element is present in the between or in the middle of that array, so my algorithm don't have to iterate till the end of the array. Once it reaches in the middle of the array, it will find that element. Okay, and that scenario will be represented with average case scenario. Okay, so this I think would be the best example for you to understand the concept of worst case, best case, and average case scenarios. Okay, so I'm sure in this complete tutorial I have tried my level best to make you understand the various concepts of asymptotic notations, which are worst case, best case, and average case scenarios. Okay, and I'm sure you guys have understood all the concepts that I have discussed in this lesson. And that's all for this lesson, guys, and thanks for watching.